In case anyone's watching while I'm figuring out technology. Hi. Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Ruth Awad. I am a poet in Columbus, Ohio. What else can I tell you about myself? This is my office. This is where I work all day, every day. And this is about as close as I get to pajamas because I don't really believe in them. And you can fight me about that if you want to. I'm going to read for you for about 15 minutes this evening, and then I'm happy to take requests or to answer questions about poetry or your enthusiasm about pajamas, or we can talk about my dogs. I'm happy to do that. So yeah. Oh, do you guys want to see Winnie real quick? She's sitting right by me. Hold on, just 1 second. Winnie, baby, come here. Come say hi. Say hi to Facebook. Wow, you're so cute. She's not happy about this. In case you didn't know, Winnie is a Pomeranian. She is almost 2 years old. She'll be 2 this Halloween. She was born on fucking Halloween. Like, who gets that? And she's a Scorpio. More than you ever needed to know about my dog. Okay. I'll stop stalling and read you guys some poetry. I'm going to read a couple poems from my collection Set to Music of Wildfire. It looks like this. This is my war-torn copy of the book. It's been everywhere with me as I travel to places and read poems. Let's see. All you need to know really about the collection is it's based on my father's experiences of growing up in Tripoli, Lebanon during the Lebanese Civil War. And hi guys, I just read the comments. And what else? Yeah, it's split into 3 sections. So the first section of the collection is about my father still in Lebanon, kind of processing the events of the war. The second section is where he meets my mother and has me and my 2 sisters. And then the third section is kind of the resolution to the collection, where my dad is kind of dealing with the aftermath of his divorce to my mother and kind of finding his way back to Lebanon. So anyway, again, if you guys have any requests or you want me to read more upbeat poetry, you're out of luck because I don't write upbeat poetry. I do have 1 dog poem that I'll read for you tonight, but that's it. That's all I got for you. Okay. This first poem is called Let Me Be a Lamb in a World That Wants My Lion. In the beginning, there was an angel with cloven feet who stood by me. And the angel said, my wings are an ocean, and its shoulders split until feathers fell around us. This is how you leave your country, on the back of an ocean, choked with feathers. If someone gives you water, drink. And if they hand you a glass of blood, tell yourself it's water. If they hand you a lamb and say, eat, they will see a lion. They will call you lion when you walk down the street, when the towers come down, when blood is the water they drink. When my belly sings with hunger, it's asking, will you die for an idea? I dreamt I walked the shore of my country, and each wave cracked like a bone. The sea of my childhood rattles with skulls, and their mouths agape with my name. Drown its vowels, call me S. Say it's the name the sea spoke when I dragged my feet across an ocean and became somewhere new. I call my dead beloved, but they have too much time for me. If I close my eyes, I see my father on the beach, his hands cupped for water. He says, "The dead are always thirsty," and I wake up in time to catch the L for work that hardly keeps me fed. Heaven, leave your light on a little longer. I looked for you on earth and found my daughters. I looked for you and saw your stars strung electric as sorrow, and they wound my current across their back and carried me here, the middle of a grocery store parking lot, the whine of floodlights burrowing into my capped head, and the black night ahead, and I think, my God, will I ever not be surprised by what I can survive? The long country of my loneliness stretched out before me, my hands heavy with the food I can eat. I'm so full of honey in a time of war, winter in a land I'm learning to love, in a land that won't love me. Told you, sad shit. Anyway, my dad, before coming to the United States, he first went to England and lived there for a while, and this doesn't really have anything to do with the next poem I'm going to read, but he learned English by listening to the Beatles, which is a piece of trivia I really like about my dad. I was fortunate enough to do a reading with Kava back in the winter this year, and his dad learned English by listening to the Rolling Stones, so like, I guess that's a good way to learn English. His dad doesn't respect the Beatles though, so I'm a Beatles girl myself. This next poem is called My Father Dreams of a New Country. America, I see through your glass. I reach my hand, and my fingerprints are everywhere. Like leaves the gust blows in. I don't have money to feed your fountains, or enough water that it's never a wish. But America, I can't stop drinking you in. Your trains, their freight like ours, like the vowels cut from my name. When will you learn my name? I'm running to you, but I can't get there fast enough. I'm strung up on gridirons and city lights. Aren't my arms tired of reaching? Isn't my back tired of carrying this night around? Be good to me like a summer rain. I swear, I'm burning. I'm gonna read just one more from the collection, and then I'm gonna read some new stuff if that's okay with you guys. Or again, if you have a poem you want me to read, I'll try to accommodate. Just let me know in the comments. Let's see. So my parents got divorced when I was kind of young. I was 6 when they separated, and my dad raised me and my sisters for a good long while, and we grew up in Indiana, like way north Indiana, cornfields everywhere, and we were kind of a little misfit for the town, I would say. My dad being kind of an immigrant and a single father, and then these 3 wild girls that he was raising. We stood out, is what I'm saying. This next poem is kind of about that time. Town gossip. But we were strange girls. Girls thrown together in mismatched clothes, shaved wisps of sideburns, that Arab last name. My father got letters. Please don't drop the girls off early. There's no one here to watch them. Kids asked, what do you mean your mom's not here? Wolves without her. Unkempt in the eyes of our teachers, Sarah hoards the week's lunch money in her desk because she's too scared to hand it to the cafeteria cashier. Those days we'd ride our bikes down Highway 1 to the hotel where my mother last stayed, and we'd loop the lot for hours, sawing paths between the bumpers for no reason, other than that door was briefly hers. Our guidance counselor is excellent with children from divorced families. We stole the bitten-eared tabby from our neighbors, mined playground rocks, pocketed mom's old lipstick tubes. Miriam is outspoken in class, but we worry her peers make fun of her alopecia. She spends recess on the blacktop next to her teacher. Leaf-strung crabapple girls. We climbed the arthritic tree outside our dentist's office, clutched there until sundown. Ruth wears men's overcoats to school. Do they belong to you? A lot of my good fortune as a poet is that I have just been surrounded by weird stories and people saying weird shit. Like, my dad got those letters all the time from teachers and like the principal just for, you know, dropping us off early or letting us dress however we wanted to dress. I wore my dad's coats to school when I was like a wee little kid, and we probably looked so strange. Sad shit for the wind. I'm reading your comments now. Thank you, guys. I don't know what stones means. Let's see. Okay, I said I'm gonna read some new stuff, so I'm gonna read some new stuff. As some of you know, no, I'm not gonna give you an introduction to this poem. I'm sorry. We're just gonna go into it. Okay, here we go. If there were a heaven, we'd be asked to leave. No, there wasn't an exact moment I knew. It was like I stood from the cliffs of our marriage and looked down. I stood from my marriage and became a cliff. Fall off me, I hiss in your ear. You hand me a fistful of rocks. See how we rush to the ground. See how our wants horrify us. See how I hold you like we've never disappointed each other. The fog rising from the tall grass is not like the cold breath of God. No romance in how it feathers the clouds above us. You say, you know what it's like to be every other man, unlucky enough to love me. I love reading that poem at readings because everyone's just like, did I clap for that? I'm sorry. That's very funny. Let's see, more new stuff. Newish. I should also say at this point in time, I'm not writing a lot lately. I write like maybe a poem a month if I'm lucky. I think about poems all the time. I read all the time. I'm just not the kind of poet who ever like pressures myself to write if I don't feel like it. And fellow poets, if you're out there and you feel me, let me know. I feel like writers go all the time for working in that way, but I'm trying to get cooler about it. Anyway, that has nothing to do with this next poem. I'm just rambling because that's what happens when I have a camera pointed on me. Guns won't feed you, but hold out your hands. And forget for a moment the machine is itself alive and by design sated with the alien softness of organ, the temporary framework of bone. Point its muzzle only at what you are willing to destroy. Notice your target and what is beyond it, and beyond it, your neighbor, the dog, the child. A bullet's path is characterized by hunger. How far and how long and how much. The truth is, the mechanics don't come naturally. It should take more than a finger. It should destroy you. I wrote that poem after I took a gun safety class and realized that if you follow all of these gun safety rules, you just cannot handle a gun, right? Like, you're only supposed to point the muzzle of it at what you're willing to destroy. You're supposed to think that the gun is always loaded and that everything that you point it at could potentially be a target. And like, there's always something beyond what you could point a gun at. Like, even if you point at the floor, you have to think about what's under the floor. Like, could the bullet ricochet? Anyway, it was a dreadful class. And the other thing that I saw was missing was just like this absence of any conversation about what it means to take a life, right? It just was not even a factor in that entire conversation. And I thought that was really terrifying. Anyway, I don't like guns. Y'all are sweet. I write a lot about God, and it's not necessarily because, okay, let me scale this back a little. I have a very complicated relationship with my faith. My father's Muslim. We were raised Muslim. My mother was raised Christian and is kind of a more spiritual person. I don't know what I believe. I know that it's comforting to me to think that God exists. And lately, a lot of the poems I've been writing right now have just been kind of muddling through that question for myself and what I think it means to have faith. And yeah, this next poem is kind of about that. Amor Fati. Our gods disappoint us, so we make new ones. Some glower like smoke, some wheel in suffering like dying stars. Oh, simple interstellar dust, you've made us love the fate that yokes us, to be good when living makes us mean. Say you know what I mean, northern flicker, small feather of a smaller planet. God who ate everything, did this world feed you? There were enough bodies. There were blades that passed like a stranger in starlight. In some worlds, you're so close I could kiss you. In some worlds, we keep meeting. God of 6 supposedly impossible things, a weep of wolves, a drought of bullets, the claws of a kataba, a mother's unworry, a wilderness of blood, the dead keeping count. I too am rich in things I never asked for. Okay, I promised you a poem that mentioned dogs. And after this, I'm happy to answer some questions about writing, or I could show you Winnie again. I don't know, guys. You tell me. This one is coming out soon. It's called The One Where I Beg. I'm watching my country admire its teeth. You said there is no God, and I looked up. The scar on your arm is its own sad music, pink ribbon, the kind of song that makes us want to fuck strangers. There will be no God when this is over. What gave me the audacity to touch you? The moon doesn't care. She shows us our teeth every night. She is so chill about the way we fuck up her space. Tell God to come get me. From a high enough vantage point, anything looks like begging. Tell that to the dogs, how they will howl all night long. They must think we're benevolent beasts too, all the ways we can hurt each other but don't. I say, let's call this touching a truce. Will we still beg when this is over? when I don't have any teeth left, when you have the bite marks to prove it, when we pass this quiet between us, hounds for a world on fire. That's the newest poem I've written lately. Yeah, maybe I'll never write again. Who knows? Anyway, I'm happy to read more poems. You guys can ask me questions. I'll wait. There's a comment that says the Rolling Stones are better than the Beatles, and I just have to disagree. Okay, Mick Jagger is hotter than everyone. I'll give you that. But the Beatles are like iconic, okay? They're iconic in a way that the Stones were not. Fight me. Let's look at Winnie again. Hi. You're so beautiful. I love dogs so much. I never write about my dogs though, like rarely. I'll make a vague mention to dogs every now and then, but I think it's one of those cases of like, they're so precious to me that I don't feel like I've figured out a way to make a poem do them justice. I lost my first ever dog that I ever had last year in January. And I've been trying to write a poem about her and to like do that specific kind of grief justice. And I haven't cracked it, so. Maybe one day. Okay, how long did it take me to write all the poems for my book? I started the project in grad school, but I wrote the majority of the poems in like the last semester of grad school, even though I had done a lot of work toward it. Like, the collection is based off of interviews I had with my dad. And yeah, so I did a series of interviews with my dad about growing up in Lebanon and what it's like to be a civilian, a young civilian during the war. And then I just kind of started writing out the poems. Sorry. After those series of interviews. So I wrote like the majority of the collection in like, let's say about my last year of grad school. And then I revised the collection on and off for the next 3-4 years. So I'd say about 5 years total. These are really good questions, guys. Okay. I brought out the dog. I did that for you. Maggie asked, is the second to last one you read out yet? I'm sorry, Maggie. I have a really hard time like responding to things on the fly. I'll message you. Who is the poet who's inspired me most at the moment? I have been reading the hell out of Ada Limon's latest collection, The Carrying. I love her contemplation on grief. I love what she is like a poet who does the deceptively simple incredibly well. And yeah, I keep returning to her work. I especially like her poetry about romantic relationships. I think she's just, everyone should read her. A preferred form that I go back to often, not really. I like a sonnet just because, you know, altos are cool, but I don't really write in form that often. I have to kind of like force myself to just stop writing like the same length of free verse poem that I write all the time. Something I've been experimenting with lately is not breaking my lines and just seeing how the poem forms from there. That's a real departure from how I usually build a poem, where I'm like very focused, like I build a poem brick by brick, you know, and I'm constantly like editing as I go. I'm trying to step away from that and see if like I can cultivate a little bit more wildness in the poem and like how it interacts with the page. And I'll let you know how that goes. I'm still experimenting. So these are really great questions, guys. Thank you so much for them. Right? Ada Limón, she's awesome. Okay, what advice do you have about finding balance between the lyric and narrative in poetry? That's a really great question. I think coming out of grad school, my inclination was to lead the reader by the nose and just like over explain everything. And I've really had to work against that kind of like more narrative impulse to be like, take the reader from point A to point B to point C. And now I really firmly believe in kind of like trusting a reader to follow your emotional logic and seeing how that goes. Yeah, I think that can kind of help you navigate the balance between lyric and narrative, because I feel like when you over explain your poem, not only does it kind of lose some of its power, but also it communicates to the reader that you don't really trust them to pick up what you're putting down. And readers are a lot smarter than we give them credit for. But yeah, that's not really actionable advice, and I apologize. That was kind of vague. But I think work against the instinct to like overlead, just kind of like trust the poem to take the reader on the journey that it's set out to. I will field one more question. We can talk about, I don't know, music. I've been listening to a lot of pop music lately. People who know me know that I love One Direction unabashedly, even though I'm a grown-ass woman. The new Mitski album is really great, though. If y'all haven't checked it out yet, you should. We can also look at my dog again, or call it a night. It's up to you guys. I've been out in the sunlight all day, and I'm kind of like a vampire person, so I feel like I'm a little out of sorts. Too much sunlight. Okay. What tips you off to the fact that you're over-explaining a poem when you're revising it? I think if it starts to feel like the poem is trudging along, like it doesn't have, like you're kind of sacrificing momentum. So anytime you start to feel like your interest is slipping a little, that might be a good tip that you're kind of like covering too much ground, and maybe you can just like cut that and skip ahead to the next leap. Does your father have a favorite poem from the collection in the book? I don't know. My dad he's a very logical person. He's an engineer. And so I think it was kind of hard for him at first to kind of like appreciate what the book was doing. My dad loves being involved in anything that I'm doing, though. So it was this interesting kind of like intersection of my dad wants to be involved, but also doesn't really get poetry. I think that the poem Town Gossip about, raising me and my sisters on his own really touches him, because that moment in time was kind of tender for him and he was out of his element. Thoughts on coming up with titles? I would say I write an entire poem and then step away from it for a few days and then come back with a title. I used to just go for like one word or like one image for the title of the poem. And lately I've had kind of a different train of thought, and that's that the title should be as interesting as the poem itself. And so that's kind of, it seems obvious to probably a lot of people, but that was new for me. I'm not interested in a title really setting up narrative expectations or explaining stuff or grounding the reader. Now I want the title to just be like, grab the reader's attention right away and make them feel like, I have to read this. Kind of in the way that a preview would work for a movie, where it doesn't necessarily have to tell you anything about the movie. It just has to make you like think or feel or pique your curiosity. I don't know if that's helpful at all, but that's kind of where my thinking is lately. It's super hard to read people when you can't see their faces or read the room. Oh, thank you. All right, guys, I think that's all for me. Thank you all so much for your great questions and for joining me and sweet Winnie, who I will show you one last time. Winnie, come see people. Oh, she's so sweet. All right, guys, thank you so much for joining us, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your night. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye. Bye.